Okay, let me go ahead. Good evening. My name is Mike Carter, and I'm the coordinator for the Mendocino Auxiliary Communications Service, Office of Emergency Services in Mendocino County, California. And we are going to discuss a few things. Some of these will appear to be Mendocino-centric, but you can go ahead and change anything in here from Mendocino County to the name of your county and from the call signs that we have and use to your call signs, and it will all fit together. So the Mendocino County Auxiliary Communication Service is the amateur radio service that operates under the authority of the Office of Emergency Services during a declared emergency or disaster affecting Mendocino County. We are responsible for training amateur radio operators in proper emergency operating procedures. We're also responsible for assigning and scheduling amateur operators during any emergency activation. What we are going to discuss in this presentation are the first two items: to identify the roles and responsibilities for amateur radio operators in an emergency, and also to establish the criteria for emergency communications procedures. There is another presentation that identifies the forms used and the completion requirements for the forms, and also the proper methods for documenting activities. You will note KA6EOC is the call sign for the Mendocino County Office of Emergency Operations Center. In this presentation, it can be replaced with the call sign of your net control station. So what happens with net control? Upon the declaration of an emergency by the Office of Emergency Services, the net control station, KO6EOC, will be activated at the Emergency Operations Center. KA6EOC will declare the emergency on the countywide net and that it is a directed net. We have a countywide repeater system that links both Mendocino and Lake counties together. It's a system of 5 repeaters, and any one of them can be used to talk to anyone in either one of the 2 counties. All non-emergency traffic will be directed to refrain from using the countywide system and will be directed to use their local and/or regional frequencies for local radio traffic. Each one of our towns and cities has a local frequency that they can use for local communications. Each one of the local towns will have a net control. That net control will be the person who will be talking on the countywide net. That way we reduce the number of people who are actually talking on our countywide link system. The amateur radio operators who are available for assignment will notify the EOC of their availability. But prior to the notification, we ask the hams to prepare any radio equipment they may need for an assignment and be ready for deployment. We have a note: while some locations have installed radio equipment, the ham should bring all the equipment necessary to operate as a standalone station. Right now, we have ham radios installed in all of our hospitals, all of our resident care facilities, and all of our clinics. We also have them installed at our main health department office. We have them installed at our Office of Education and all of our school district offices. The health offices and the education will be on separate nets, and then their EOC will respond onto the countywide net with any information or requests. The notification should be a brief transmission. KA6EOC, this is K6C6MGM, available for assignment. Then you wait for acknowledgement and monitor the radio for an assignment. The reason I mentioned that we have those radios installed in all of these separate locations, we have them all installed, but sometimes the staff of those locations decide that they need the space and they'll move the radio or disconnect the antenna. And they aren't always 100% ready for operation. So we ask people that are responding to bring enough equipment that they can actually operate standalone in the event the equipment at the location isn't operational. Now, what is the responsibility of the ham radio operator? Upon assignment by KA6EOC, the ham will repeat the assignment back to KA6EOC and give an estimated time of arrival. The ham will gather his or her equipment and go to the assigned location. Upon arrival at the assigned location, the ham will report their arrival to KA6EOC and will also establish their point of contact at the location. They'll also inform the point of contact the location from which they will be operating. In many instances, we may be operating from our vehicle out in the parking lot, or if they have a ham radio installed, we'll be operating from that location. Excuse me. The ham will report the status of their location, monitor the net, send and receive any traffic related to their location, document the radio traffic, and inform the EOC of any changes in their status or the status of their location. We do have a special program with satellite internet. If a ham radio operator has a functional satellite internet connection, they may be requested to function as a health and welfare message center. This would involve sending email messages from people at shelters and other safe locations to people outside the disaster area. All of the hams who have satellite internet who are on this list also have emergency power. So with the emergency power, their radio and the satellite internet, they still have contact with the outside world.
Mike, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Yeah, Ray, I just got 2 texts of people trying to join the meeting.
Give me a second here. Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah, both the people that texted me are now on the call, so thanks.
Okay. I'll start at the beginning of this one. If we have a ham radio operator who has a functional satellite internet connection, they may be requested to function as a health and welfare message center. This would involve sending email messages from people at shelters and other safe locations to people outside of the disaster area. The ham would receive a message on a radiogram with the email address of the recipient. They'll then transmit the email via satellite internet to the recipient with the text of the body on the radiogram. Upon receipt of a response, the ham would transmit the response over the radio station sending the original health and welfare message. So if I want to send a message to Aunt Martha in Minnesota that I'm okay, I can have the ham radio operator at a shelter send that to the Health and Welfare Message Center, which has a satellite internet. They will then send my message to Aunt Martha, and hopefully Aunt Martha will respond, and then they'll send that back to the shelter where I'm located. Emergency communications procedures. Emergency communications need to be brief and concise, but relay all of the required information. The ham may have to assist the point of contact in the formatting of radio traffic. This will ensure that the message will contain all the required information, but be as brief as possible. We had one exercise where one of our health clinics wanted to send a 200-word message on all of the stuff that they needed in order to keep their clinic running. Obvious, when you have a number of stations on one frequency, there is no way that you can send that message via voice and not burn up about a half an hour's worth of radio time. All outgoing radio traffic should be approved by the point of contact prior to transmission. And all incoming traffic should be delivered to the point of contact for distribution. This will ensure that the point of contact knows all communications activities at the location. They know what's coming in and they know what's going out. The messages have to be brief and concise. Try to eliminate all the words that aren't necessary to transmit the information. Wrong example. Howard Hospital will need all of the following supplies to continue normal operations of the hospital. The correct way is Howard needs the following supplies. Wrong. Howard will be off the air because I will be attending a meeting. I will report in when I get back. The correct way is just Howard off the air. Try and keep it as brief as you can. When you're requesting supplies, you have to be specific. Wrong. Howard Hospital needs a generator. Correct. Need 50 kilowatt generator plus fuel and storage for 48 hours. This then gives a logistic team an idea of the size of the generator you need and that you will need fuel and how long you will need fuel for. If you're requesting medical supplies, you have to be specific. If you say you need 50 sutures, they're going to come back and ask you what size. So the correct way would be I need 50 4/0 silk sutures. By providing precise information, you're going to eliminate the need for additional messages for clarification. The use of standard radio operating procedures help to ensure both efficient and accurate traffic handling and net operations. If you do what the trained receiving operator expects, confusion errors are minimized. If you use the techniques, you'll be understood anywhere on the net. But we have to remember that amateur radio protocols are not so formal that a person will be removed from a net if they're not followed to the letter. It's just that using them will assist with effective and accurate communications. One of the key problems that we have, every exercise that we're involved in, is sending speed. The transmitting operator must send clearly and at a speed which will allow the receiving operator to copy perfectly without rushing. You have to transmit, do not read the message. It's one of the hardest skills in traffic handling to master. Use pauses to frame groups clearly. As an example, if you tried to write at the speed that I'm talking, you'd never get the message down. But that's what everybody in the ham community is used to, is talking at the speed we normally do. You have to assume that the receiving operator is copying with a pencil and paper unless advised otherwise. And remember, it always takes less time to send the message correctly the first time than it takes to negotiate repeats and fills up missing or uncertain parts. The importance of clearly spaced group transmissions can't be overemphasized. It's crucial for correct message copy. One of the useful tricks that I've learned to overcome the natural tendency to speak too rapidly is say a group or phrase, pause, spell it to yourself mentally as though you were writing it, and continue when you visualize that the receiving operator is also finished. So if I'm going to send a useful trick, USEFULTRICK, to overcome, you say it to yourself, spell it to yourself, and by then the person on the other end should have been able to write it down. Send in 5-word groups with a pause to allow the other operator to catch up with your transmission. Sometimes when you have really long words, you might just want to send that word individually. You might want to spell that word phonetically. 2 stations passing traffic on voice do not have the luxury of duplex operations like you have with a telephone. You have to work together using the skills that come from proper training and experience to know what each other is doing without direct feedback. This is one of the primary purposes of using these standard protocols. Was there a question? When copying a message to the message form, print everything as legibly as possible. This is another reason why you have to speak slowly so that the person can actually write it down without trying to scribble something because you're talking too fast. The whole reason for the message transmission is to pass the information to the receiving person so they can understand the message. If they can't read it, they can't understand it. Always have a solid base for your message forms. If you're in a fixed station, it's most likely going to be a table or a desk. When operating from a vehicle, the use of a clipboard will give you a good base. Pro words, introductory words, and operational words are set aside for special purposes, and they're recognized by traffic handlers. Any of the words used are likely to cause confusion or be written down by the receiving operator. Words such as use today's date, backstop, that's 2 words, black as a night are considered bad practice. Don't say any extraneous words. Check, not with a check of. To, not going to. Signature, not break for signature. If the person's writing this down, quite often they're going to write down everything they hear you say. So try and keep it as brief and accurate as possible. Other stations need net time also. All operators have to memorize the phonetic alphabet, number pronunciation, and being fluent in spelling groups using phonetics. You can practice off air by sending yourself a text in phonetics and just practice using it. The use of pauses. Pauses are crucial, important tools in voicing messages. Pauses exist between word letters, groups, essential for clarity and separation. At the end of the preamble, after each line in an address, and the mandatory listening pause after the first break, or even after every 4 or 5 words of text. That gives the receiving operator a chance to break in and see if you need to say anything over. A clear group pause will distinguish between South Fork and South Fork easily. Pauses are essential to allow copying time for the receiving operator. Use longer pauses after longer groups, especially after the city and the preamble or the address. The receiving operator hears the pauses. They are clues to what's coming next in addition to aiding in correct group copying. Besides, you can use pauses, they're free. The word number begins a message. It tells the operator to copy everything after hearing the word number. To begin the message, say number, then transmit the preamble. This is the short formal way to initiate the copy. It has been a long-standing custom to begin by saying, please copy number or copy message number, but these informalities are not required. In addition to saying number, the best practice to do is to ask the receiving station if they're ready to copy. If you just come on the radio and say number and start transmitting the preamble, the person may not have a radiogram sitting right in front of him with his pencil in his hot little hand ready to copy things down. So ask the station if they're ready. When they come back and say Roger, say number, and then transmit the preamble. In other words, the corresponding pro word to stop copy is end. So written copy begins with number and is terminated with end. The pro word break marks the start of the text, and break at the end of the text marks the start of the signature. The first break at the start of the text requires a pause after saying the word to listen for fill requests and the address information. The receiving station does not respond at the break unless necessary. The break used to end the text does not require a pause before continuing with the signature. So, you begin the message with number, you begin the text with break, you terminate the text with break, and you terminate the message with end. So that gives the person who is writing down the message, he knows to start, you started with number, you're ending with end, and that the text will be between the two breaks. I spell. It's used to indicate you're going to go back and spell a group just voice. It's used with one group at a time, and it's said immediately after voicing the group, followed by phonetic spelling of the group. Pausing too long before saying I spell will force the receiving operator to attempt to spell the group before you do. When the group is spelled, go on to the next group without repeating the spelled group. Example, for 61, 60, I spell Sierra, India, X-ray, Tango, Yankee. 1, I spell Oscar, November, Echo. And then continue with your message. You should always spell the last names of an addressee in an address, an email address, proper names in text, last names in the signature, radiogram numbers spelled out in text, such as 50 and 60, would sound very much alike even when they're spelled, and fills as requested. If there's any doubt about a correct copy, spell it out. Say again and I say again. If a receiving operator misses part of a message, they should ask the transmitting station to say again. This is used during a pause by using the phrase and including the last word received. Say again all after word. The transmitting station will then go back to the word given by the receiving station and use I say again, continues the message. I say again all after word. Now, if it's a simple word like say all after the, you might want to say after the emergency operations center. Then they know which the you're talking about. That will eliminate some confusion. Over indicates the end of your transmission and signals the receiving station to go ahead. Many transmissions by the net controller in individual stations are self-completing. In such cases, the over may be omitted. On the other hand, if a station's traffic list, comment, or question is of uncertain length, it should be terminated with over. The over may be used between messages or after other transmissions whenever the transmitting station wishes to signal to the other station to go ahead. The over is useful in preventing two stations from transmitting at the same time. It's used effectively when the words of the transmission are not themselves a clear indication for the other station to go ahead. And we've all done it. Doubling by two stations can result in much wasted time and copying errors. Affirmative and negative. To avoid confusion when responding to a question, the preferred responses are affirmative and negative. Affirmative means yes, negative means no. But if in the body of the text has the words yes or no, they will be transmitted as the words yes or no. Roger, the receiving station acknowledgement of a message copy. It's not necessary to repeat the message number or other parts. Roger means you received and understood and implies that all the messages were received. It does not mean yes or affirmative. Use yes, affirmative, no, negative. Roger means I have received the message. Figures, used to introduce a group of one or more numbers. Say figures, then voice the numbers one digit at a time. Group pause, go to the next group. Example, 2, voiced as figure 2. 62, voiced as figures 6, 2. Saying figure 2 means the number character 2. Saying 2 implies a spelled out word TWO. Saying figures 6, 2 indicates the single group 62. Saying figure 6, figure 2 results in copying the figures 6 and 2 as separate groups. Saying 62 or 62 implies two groups. Words spelled out exactly as shown. Avoid the use of figure 17 in place of figures 1-7. Don't use any of the T numbers with the word figures. So if you're using anything from 13 to 19, you'll say 13 to 19. If I'm using 15, I'd say 15 figures 1-5. So they know that I'm saying the word 15 and that it's the number 1-5. Initials. Used to introduce a single letter initial, phonetic pronunciation is mandatory, as in the initial in a proper name, John R. Smith. So you would say John, initial Romeo, Smith. The letter X-ray is used as a period, and it's voiced as initial X-ray. The X used as a period is often voiced without the initial introduction. It's preferred to actually say initial X-ray. It's used to introduce a group of 2 or more letters, such as an abbreviation or unpronounceable group. For example, Alpha Mike for AM, November Charlie Sierra for NCS, for the net control station, Tango Hotel Uniform Romeo for Thursday, and they're all voiced as initials. Say initials, then immediately say the letters phonetically, pause, and then go on to the next group.
Mike,
Yes.
can you unshare and then reshare the screen? One of the users is having trouble with seeing the slides.
Okay.
It might be a bandwidth issue. I'm just not sure, but it's just a good try.
Stop share. 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 And that one. Better?
Liz, are you seeing it now?
Nope, I'm not. I'll just have to look at the slides later, but thank you so for trying.
Okay. Back to you, Mike.
Okay. Whoop. Special addresses. Email address in the address section of a radiogram should be written in the normal email format. For example, mendocinoacs@gmail.com, harry@aol.com, etc. For an internet address, the example http://www.ham.info/edu is introduced as internet address and is written in the body as, and you say each one of the words, http://www.ham.info/edu. And it's voiced in a similar fashion as above, and in a radiogram has a word count of 11. So if you're using a radiogram with 25 spaces in it, you just used up half of the radiogram for the email address. Or for the internet address, excuse me. For an email address, for example, harry@aol.com, it's introduced as email address and written in the body as harry@aol.com. It's voiced in similar fashion as above and has a word count of 5. If you're using the email address in the address portion of the radiogram or of the ICS 213, you don't have to worry about the word count, but you should still pronounce it the same way, and they're going to fill it right in the body the same way. Tactical call signs. Tactical call signs, when used properly by well-trained and practiced operators, can prevent confusion, save a great amount of time, and also aid in making a net or operation run smoothly and efficiently. Typically, tactical call signs are used during a disaster or other emergency situation to identify a specific location or a function. The use of tactical call signs can be very helpful if mutual aid has been invoked and operators from outside the area arrive. For example, A station identifying as Willett's EOC is immediately known as to where and what it is by everyone on the net, regardless of the operator on duty and the FCC call sign of the operator. One common mistake often heard is an operator identifying with the station's tactical call sign, then saying his or her own call sign. For example, Willett's EOC, Kilo Juliet 6, Echo Romeo Kilo. It's unnecessary and defeats the whole purpose. Remember, Part 97.119. The amateur operator only needs to identify with their FCC call sign at the end of a transmission, when transmitting every 10 minutes, and at the end of their shift assignment. It's also redundant and unnecessary to say for ID. Your call sign is your ID. In any net, incident, operation, or event, every location or station should have its own unique tactical call sign. Tactical call sign should be descriptive, such as location, Fort Bragg shelter, a function, CERT team leader, or both, Ukiah net control. Don't use the FCC call sign to identify a particular location or function, since it's possible that the operator may be at one tactical location one day and another the next day, or even the next hour. Be sure to use the FCC issue call signs when and as required by FCC Part 97. Remember, a tactical call sign remains the same for a given station and does not change with the time, shift, day, or with the operator in charge. It remains the same until the net or the incident is over. So for us, Mendocino Emergency Operations Center stays Mendocino Emergency Operations Center from the time we call the disaster until the time the disaster is over and we close the net. Is there a question? Okay. In summary, transmitting messages on voice is more complex than many operators realize at first. It's a learned skill. Like any other, requires some practice. The tools and rules are based mainly on common sense, however, and are easily learned. By practicing these procedures, even by yourself, you can hone your skills for the next emergency when you may be requested to staff a radio by the Emergency Operations Center. Are there any questions? No questions. Comments? Suggestions?
That's a good presentation, Mike. I appreciate you, what you're doing here, and I'm learning a lot from it.
We actually have monthly radiogram practice sessions where we set up a Zoom meeting and everybody has a radiogram, and one at a time, everybody gets a chance to send their radiogram and a chance to receive a whole bunch of radiograms. So it gives people practice in sending and in receiving, and they can see how other people do it. So we just had, during the big Great American Shakeout, we had some people sending emergency messages who hadn't participated in the practice. And I was working as the Emergency Operations Center. And by the time they were on word 15, I had written down word 3. Because they were sending at basically the speed I'm talking right now. And you can't do it that way. Like I said, it is one of the hardest things to overcome for hams who are used to just rag chewing with one another, to slow down enough to actually send a message somebody can copy. But also knowing the keys to how to fill out the radiogram and what the number, break, end mean can really help people when you're sending messages back and forth.
So one of the
Any
things
other
I'm
questions?
interested in is having a what I call a radio only exercise, which basically what I'm doing is managing airlifts. I'm air boss for disaster airlift, and we're trying to support that with ham radio emergency communications. And so what I'm wanting to do is have maybe 2 exercises that are not don't have an airlift component to them. They're just radio only in support of an airlift. And I was wondering, do you have a kind of a format or an outline that you might use for what things you cover in an exercise, or how you do an actual radio emergency communication support exercise?
Yeah, we actually do a number of them during the year. Our school district normally does at least one emergency exercise a year that's nothing but ham radio. Our public health normally does 2 exercises a year that is basically nothing but ham radio. And when we did this last shakeout, basically it was literally nothing but ham radio. I was functioning from my house as the EOC, and we did put the whole thing together, set everything up, and we actually had both the health services and the school districts all working together, plus our local emergency nets for the local towns. And everything was just ham radio. There was nothing else involved. So yeah, I've got one I can send you the one that we did for the shakeout, and you can see how we did the shakeout drill.
Okay, that'd
and
be
how
great.
how everything was coordinated.
Are you doing all this on simplex, or do you have a repeater involved, or how do you handle the net?
Okay. Where I'm at in Mendocino County, we have 4 repeaters in our county, and we have 1 in Lake County, which is next door, that are all linked together. So you can be anywhere in Mendocino and Lake County and talk on a frequency, and you're talking to both counties, the complete county. There are very few dead spaces other than right on the coast on the southwest corner of Mendocino County. There's a little ridge line that sort of blocks a bunch of stuff down there. But we also have 2 linked repeaters down there where people can talk on the south end of the county. We have 2 link repeaters on the northwest where the people on that part of the coast can talk to each other. And we happen to have 1 station right in the center that can tie into our linked countywide system. So the station that's in the center listens to what they're saying in the south, what they're saying in the north, and then relays that into the emergency operations center. Other than that, we've got probably a half a dozen standalone repeaters that we also use for different things. But yeah, we have a huge linked FM system.
And I guess I got a question for Steve. I'm sure you've considered this. Do you have any words around what that might look like here in the Willamette Valley and toward the coast?
Okay, what might look like?
Yeah.
No, I missed a word there. You said that would look like?
Yeah. Do you have any sense of what something like what Mike is talking about might look like in our own geography here on the Willamette Valley and then in the coast?
Well, I can tell you the way Clark County does it, and that's at the north end of what you would consider that valley. We have a net control on a repeater frequency normally, and then we have different teams deployed, and they have team simplex frequencies. And when a a request comes in to transfer a message, the net control station pushes them off to a either a simplex frequency that they can both hit or a different repeater. So we have a number of repeaters, probably 8 or 10 that could be utilized for passing message traffic. Down the valley, I'm assuming it's going to be somewhat the same. There's a lot of repeaters down there, so that if you had two stations that were fairly close to each other, they'd be operating on simplex. A little further away, they're going to go to a a local repeater, and if it's a longer distance message, it's going to be a longer distance repeater. So that's generally how it works. How they have it planned, I don't know. Haven't seen their plan for ages.
So
Do you
I'm
have
gonna
any
go,
sense of what configuration might work, say, between the valley and the coast? Getting over the coastal range mountains?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that separately. There's a lot of repeaters that do go over
Okay,
the mountains, and there are some link systems that do as well.
thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now. We can continue the conversation though.